Hey guys, welcome back. So if we were in class together, this would be the worksheet that would be sitting right next to the door, and you would be picking this up as you walk in. So I'd like you to try to do the first 4 problems on your own. Hit pause on this video, and I'll wait for you, and then I'll show you the answers. Okay, so the first one, hopefully you flipped it over the y-axis. And labeling it, this would be my M prime, L prime, and K prime. Easy one. Okay, the next one. Number 2, we're flipping across the x-axis. So this would be my E prime, F prime, and G prime. Okay, now the next 2, you may not have been quite sure what to do without graphing. So let's see. Okay, so for these next 2, number 3 and number 4, how could we do this without having to graph it? Well, if you find the pattern or the rule in the above problems, then you can do these problems without having to graph it. So when you go across the x-axis, okay, what is the rule? Let's look at the x-axis problem up here. If I flip the G across the x-axis, it ended up being here for G prime. Well, now let's look at the coordinates of those points. The coordinates of G are -5, 1. And the coordinates of G prime are -5, -1. So now that you have that pattern in your mind, you can see that all that changes when you flip across the x-axis. The only thing that changes is your y-coordinate becomes the opposite. Okay? So once you get that straight in your head, that means real quick, these coordinates, L prime is going to keep the 1 and change the -5 to a +5. K prime, keep the 2, change the -1 to a +1. And J prime, keep the 3 and change the -4 to a +4. Okay, so when you flip across the x-axis, it changes the sign of your y-coordinate, which should make sense. Okay, now looking at the y-axis problem, that's the same as this one. If I flipped across the y-axis, when we flipped the M across the y-axis, M prime ended up over here. Okay, so get the pattern straight in your head. The initial image, M, has coordinates 2, 2. M prime has coordinates -2, 2. So hopefully that reminds you that when you flip across the y-axis, it's your x-coordinates that change. So now we can do number 4. V prime, change the sign of your x-coordinate, leave the y-coordinate. W prime, change the sign of the x-coordinate, leave the y-coordinate. You get the idea. It gets a little redundant. -2, 5. And y prime would be, running out of room, y prime would be -5, 3. Okay? If ever you forget the rule, just quickly flip a single point across the x-axis or across the y-axis. It doesn't even have to be a point that they gave you. Okay? So let's say I'm trying to do that last problem again, going across the y-axis. I could just pick any point anywhere. Maybe I want to always use, I don't know, this point right here, 2, 0. Okay? That point has coordinates 2, 0 right now. If I flip it across the y-axis, then it ends up over here, -2, 0. I think that makes it pretty clear that all that changes is the sign of your x-coordinate. Okay? You can use any point. Just flip one point. That's all you need to do. All right, moving on to the next part. Okay, so this next part is the beginning of the new information. So first, can you see that these are not flipped like the above problems were? Instead, these shapes appear to be turned. Okay, so they are turned, spun, whatever you want to think of it as, a spin or a turn. This is called a reflection. And this is the part of the lesson that's going to be very hard for me to show using this format and not in person, but I'll do my best. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch to a separate video so that I can actually record spinning things. Okay, so hang tight and please watch the next video.